Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of September the 2nd till 8th, 2024. We have a really powerful week ahead of us. There is so much going on in the sky and every single conversation has its own importance, either for the present, either for the immediate future, so basically the weeks ahead, or it can even be big and karmic, so that means it comes from the distant past and something that needs to be accepted, processed, laid to rest, terminated, harvested, done something with it in that sense, because we have a really strong alchemical energy in the sky, one of the more strongest kind, one which we haven't had for quite a long time. So it can be intense, even in the best of ways, because this energy, yes, it's chaotic, disruptive. Uranus just started its retrogradation. So for the first 2 weeks, it's very intense. Earthquakes, you know, the Uranus, everything that goes hand in hand with Uranus, and it's standing still, meaning it's that much more hype, which means our nervous system is also that much more hype, sometimes even without a truly rational logical reason. But we must not forget that we are also electromagnetic beings, so electromagnetic shifts and changes and rearrangements do affect us very strongly, and even artificial electromagnetic fields. But let's not go into that. You know why? Because I am 100% sure that in the coming years, Pluto, in its transit in the sign of Aquarius, not this week though, is gonna reveal a lot about artificial electromagnetic fields and their interaction with the human consciousness and stuff like that. But as I said, not this week though, because this week is the first week when Pluto is back at that notorious 29 degree of Capricorn, finishing a job. But besides the expected intensity and the fight and the struggle, because as we saw uh previous times, for example in 2023 and 2022, when Pluto was around this degree, so not so long ago, whenever this happens, certain I don't even necessarily want to say people, because it can be, for example, an organization or certain entities, let's say, and not in the not the supernatural kind, or maybe that is included, who knows. Anyway, on top, the leaders of something, the head of something, the representative of something, and not just the leaders. The leaders are highlighted, right? Because it's 29 degree, energetic degree. This is where the shadow of the shadow. So of course the head of whatever is the main target, but the whole organization, the structural Capricorn. So we know that it really affects them, and they grip onto power. They don't want to let go. Their secrets are being spilled out. Moment of big conflict between them. So there's that. But due to this really powerful alchemical aspect that we have all throughout the week, and this will be with us for some time. Um, this is where uh, a lot of, I don't want to make it sound so simplistic, even though it kind of is if we think about it more deeply. But what I want to say is that the good side, the good intensity, because the good here is so subjective. What is good anyway? You know what I mean? But anyway, can be very, very intense because it can follow an ending, Pluto. It can follow a loss, a transformation, a big Plutonian move in one's life that is going on, better said, these years. But Pluto back at this 29 degree of Capricorn also closes a big cycle. It's transit in Capricorn. So a period starting from 2008 until the present moment. So this year is the last moment when we get this energy. That is a big wrap up, one way or another. For most people, perhaps that wrap up, that moment of conclusion, is merely philosophical. They think back, reflect, and this is a strong moment. So this is not the average reflection and contemplation. This is where it's life changing. This is where you found a totally, let's say, new faith or new goal, new hopes, or a big one, that which basically had power over you in every way, shape, and form, ended, and you find yourself, even though with nothing new acquired yet, with a lot of freedom, with a lot of space within you, with a lot of void, which many times is not very pleasant. However, with this strong alchemical aspect, this is when we can really, really do something with it quickly and meaningfully, powerfully. When we can fill that void very, very quickly, or we can make that void become our power because it can be a strong driving force towards whatever it is that we need to find, or it to find us, the larger Aquarian um, cycle of Pluto in the next 20 years. So, anyway, what I'm trying to say, for the new, for the next, for there is still time, but this is where it's also a big wrap up. But after all of this being said, let's get into the details and see what's going to happen. So we are on the 2nd of September here, and Uranus just started its retrograde. Again, I have to say, this week and next week, it's not gonna move all that much. It just hangs around this 27 degree of Taurus, and even after, it's gonna be still pretty slow until it picks up a bit of speed. So right now, Uranus is really, really keeping us awake. It's not just the awakening factor, it's also, until it doesn't move much, it will simply keep us awake. It will not allow us to detach very easily from whatever it's focusing on, right? Because this turns inwards, it's retrograde. Its symbolism goes inwards. So this is where we are, the Uranus, our minds, and not just our minds, our higher minds especially, because synchronicities and all of the, let's say, more magical, esoterical Uranian moments, those are very deeply rooted in the higher mind, higher self, etc., etc. So that is where whatever we process, whatever we focus our awareness on right now, wherever this Uranus is locked onto, that area of life and that specific theme in our lives, which without a doubt was already started from 2018 onwards, that requires us to be the most authentic self, to drop off judgment, to get outside of the box, etc. The Uranus requirement, so to speak. Now those are really, really strong within us. So again, this prepares us to make big moves. However, this is where the planets are truly starting to go retrograde one after another. Jupiter from the big planets is still to go retrograde. So, and this year, and the very end of the year, we also have a Mars retrograde. But this week actually is a starting point for that, because this week, not yet, actually, um I'll speak about this in more detail when we get to that day. But what I wanted to say is that Mars leaves Gemini and enters into the sign of Cancer, and it will spend a lot of time in this sign, because as I said, this year Mars retrograde starts towards the very end of the year, and it will retrograde back to Cancer. So yes, but that will be the theme of a future horoscope. It's not very important yet, but it will be a massive energy shift, because Mars is where Cancer is where Mars is not its most powerful and most, how should I say, out there, dynamic. Uh, I wanted to say courageous, but that would be very, very incorrect, because Mars in Cancer is very courageous given the circumstances. But it's, let's say, it's not as direct. So that's why, of course, it's not all that powerful. But I'll get to this when we will look at Mars entering that 0 degree of Cancer. And Pluto is beginning to get to that 29 degree of Capricorn. So let me just, there we are. And this is very, very important, because it perfects the powerful alchemical energy that I have been speaking about. So now let's look at this in greater detail, the components of it. This is what astrologers call a minor grand trine, because it is formed of two sextiles connected by a trine. So to me personally, maybe not every astrologer will agree to this, but to me personally, this is a touch, maybe not better, maybe that's not the appropriate word, but a touch more creatively better than a classic grand trine, when we have three trines connected to each other. And the reason for this is because the sextile brings the alchemy itself, to be totally honest with you. It invites us to put everything that we have on the table and to make good use of it, to make progress, to overcome something, to initiate something. But when I say initiate, this may not be the moment of initiation, because all of the three components are retrograde. Pluto retrograde, Uranus now officially retrograde, even though it doesn't move yet, and Neptune retrograde. The sextile between Neptune and Pluto is very, to the degree exact, it's very, very strong. And that in itself is very alchemical. Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, the spirit, reality is just a dream, right? Everything is ether, everything is, in a sense, mutable. From a divine perspective, it absolutely is. And Pisces is the unconscious, the power of the unconscious, the interaction of the unconscious with other parts of our being. But then there is Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, and Capricorn is the physical. Capricorn is the stage of manifestation. As above, so below. Below is Capricorn, the earth, but not the physical earth just, because that would rather be Taurus. Neither the physical earth and everything included in there, because that would be more like Virgo, but Capricorn is the sphere of the earth. So Malkuth, as they would call it in esoteric sciences, the Kabbalistic sphere of the earth. So that is Capricorn. Everything physical, but semi-physical as well. Like, let me give you an example. That something that is very Capricornian, and it's not all that real. A banking system. It manages, right? But how real is it? It's not, because nature doesn't have that in her. However, as above, so below. Above, a lot of the divine structures are similar to the earthly ones in the sense that they are like a hierarchy, they are like an interconnected structures that complement each other. Um, I think I can use this analogy, like decisions or whatever. The executory function is pretty much the same because it travels from the top below, and with each jump, with each travel in the executory um, organ, let's say, it is a bit more refined and more refined and more refined, and ultimately more applicable, right? Because what the CEO wants is just a big idea. How it becomes executory, so when it gets to the very bottom, that might be a totally different picture than what the CEO dreamed up, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's how the divine, the tree of life, ultimately works. So Capricorn is the earthly sphere, and Pluto in that 29 degree, the very, very end, the elimination, the basically the symbol of Saturn's scythe, the harvest. Bye bye, bye bye, in the sense that it reached a stage of its final evolution. Now it has to be alchemized, so cut off, changed, transformed. The current state has to end. So, and these sextiles between the sextile between Neptune and Pluto is very strong. So this is the last moment in our lifetime when we get such a powerful alchemical boost. Pisces, the dream and the spirit, the ether. Capricorn, the earthly sphere, the two meeting. And the sextile says to us, everyone has some unique power over this. A tiny fraction, of course. Like, compare the voltage of a neuron to that of, I don't know, your phone or whatever. It's massively different in intensity. However, the applicability of both is very, very similar, if you know what I mean. So this is where it's a very, very strong energy. So it gives us some power. What that power is was within our big, big mission these past few years to discover it, take it back, etc. Do something with our power. And now is the moment, from a more esoteric, internal, psychological, philosophical perspective. This is truly the moment, because Uranus really complements this, really helps this. How? Well, it's in the earth sign of Taurus, so nature herself is also upgrading. If nature herself is undergoing renewal, especially in the most subtle way, then you can imagine that that means, if we mirror what Mother Nature does, we are truly, in a literal sense, an integrate part of her. So we must allow certain energies to do not necessarily what they want to, but to do their jobs along with us, inside of us. Now, this can uh, actually be one of those, how should I say, the genetic activations that people are so very hyped about. The light codes, the solar activity upgrading, all of that, of course. But this is also where psychologically we upgrade, as in, this is when we truly uh not shed off our old skin, because chances are that's already been shed off. Eclipses in Taurus in the past years, and all of the conjunctions, but shedding off the skin is just one phase of the metamorphosis. Now would be the part when we accept what we became. You know what I mean? Because something futuristic can also be a deeply authentic, powerful truth within us that we feel deeply, even if it doesn't make sense yet. For example, why do I have these urges, whatever those are? That because they are so atypical to me. For example, and this is real example, um, a person who usually had this, I don't necessarily want to say OCD, but a bit cleaning obsession. Everything sterile, clean, and they used to be like that all their lives, really. Since these Uranian triggers and strong activations, they actually became the opposite. As in, yep, they can accept a bit of mess, they can even stay in a bit of not perfectly tidy, and that to be not even a struggle for them. So they really accepted it, they really integrated it. So this is what I'm talking about. And that in itself, why atypical to the person, right? But that person might ask themselves, why is this happening right now and on its own? Because I didn't really start this, even though I had my realizations, as in why the everything sterile is a bit futile and stuff like that. Uh, so where is this guiding me? Well, maybe one of the possibilities is where you enjoy much more time with your partner in your relationship, etc., etc. And maybe that small and insignificant thing, that extra bit of time, or I don't care about, I care more about my partner than my level of disinfection, if you know what I mean. Maybe that saves a relationship big time. And it's such a small and insignificant little, you know, inner shift. And yet, so this is the things I'm speaking about, where something new is felt so honest and authentic and true and real, and in a certain way rebellious to us. Those things must be embraced because those are key to the future, even if we do not see how, or if it doesn't make sense how. Whatever our these new urges are, new tendencies, new things that, again, not something that we saw on the internet and are trying out in that sense, but it comes from within, deeply from within, and we have no choice but to actually give way to them. And for many people with Pluto in Capricorn, this comes off as an old, rigid judgment falling off like an old skin. And if a judgment falls off, the world is a different dimension, truly. An example, a highly religious, fanatical person ends that, or somehow that pattern is ended. You can imagine them looking at the world the very next day is like awakening in a different dimension. Without the lens of judgment, everything is so different. So, or this week, especially at the beginning, this ties in a tiny bit. So I'm going to reveal this too. Chiron trining, Mercury trining, Chiron Mercury trine, where Mercury is slowly and surely making its way back on its shadow path. So it's wrapping up the retrograde. A powerful, powerful healing moment. So when someone heals or makes a huge step towards healing, and life from this state, even if it's not complete, or even if it's just one step from 10 scale, it feels different, and it's like a new dimension because viewing something, living something, doing something, perceiving something from a more healed state makes everything be different. Or for some people, Mercury trine Chiron, especially that Mercury is in the sign of Leo, it is a big infusion of hope, a hope that heals the heart, or vice versa, where the heart becomes stronger and hope is fed. So it's very much felt much more realistically, honestly, and that changes everything around. So anyway, long story short, one of the potentials of this minor grand trine is profoundly healing, to remove that big hurt, the trauma, the unforgivable memory. And this might also be moment of justice because Pluto in Capricorn trine Uranus in Taurus. This can be when something really dark that could not be revealed is revealed, and that leads to healing. For example, when someone can speak about their childhood hurts, especially when it's some sexual assault or rape, and I'm so sorry to speak about this, but when someone goes through that, many times it's not the typical expression where they are traumatized for life and they seek help. Sometimes that is so repressed that the person thinks falsely that I wasn't all that much affected by it. I somehow made it through, and it is what it is. I put it behind me. And many times it's not really the case. It's repressed, and it leads to a big health breakdown, a vengeful illness that will lead the person to recall that, finally break down, and that's how they will heal both body and soul. So, and this is the moment of healing, right? Because the breakdown on all of that under the aspects of the past years happen, and now they're healing. Now they're getting better. They know what is going on deep within them. So powerfully healing energies and aspects here in every way, shape, and form that can really, really put an end to certain very negative patterns or enslaving patterns, patterns which took our power away, our worth away, our lovability away, whatever, in any context, those are being broken and put an end to. So this minor grand trine is so powerful, and it's powerful in any way, shape, and form, with magic manifestation, inner discovery, new states of conscious, new dimensions. Why not? Through your own unique skills. So I think I said enough, because this is something that will stay with us for another few weeks, 2 months, or stuff like that. So I'm going to be speaking about this much more, and I'm going to be mentioning this because it's powerful. But this week, Neptune already retrogrades back to 28 degrees of Pisces. So it will make the sextile with Uranus more exact, but the sextile with Pluto is gonna, so the energy is gonna rearrange. I don't want to complicate this. So this opens up this window of 2 months when we'd better be our strongest alchemical selves. All of us master alchemists, alchemizing non. If there was a moment, and I never thought I was ever gonna include this in the horoscope, when obsessing with our magical abilities and inner alchemy and trying hard, pushing hard is a good thing, this is now. Because remember, these all three planets are internalized retrograde. Pluto power, the last flare up of earthly power in Capricorn. Neptune in the sign of Pisces is where our psyches, our unconscious, is truly in the boil. And Uranus in sign of Taurus, our nervous system is hyped enough to shoot the energy, the information to the highest heavens. Because, Uranus in Taurus, the volcanic activities and earthquakes that we have been seeing these past couple of years, but that's also true energetically. Whatever we flare up, the quantum energy, the thoughts, but the higher thoughts, don't get me wrong, not the Jupiter and Gemini type of thought, but rather the quantum thoughts shoot up to the heart of the cosmos. So, and speaking about Gemini, Mars opposing the galactic center. What does this mean? This means that we can figure out, not perfectly, but sufficient self-knowledge and knowing our own mental sphere, Jupiter and Gemini, gives us sufficient wit to imperfectly decipher the galactic center's influence. What does this mean? The synchronicities, the recurring dreams, the downloads, the whatever the universe has been bombarding us with, especially since the beginning of the summer, Okay, we don't know the exact meaning, but we are as close as possible to deciphering what it can mean, right? And that also gives the best possible time frame to act on the guidance. Because whenever we need to take some kind of action, that's this moment. Because usually with galactic center and divine downloads, time for action is usually delayed greatly, or many times don't take action at all. It's very, very rare when we should actually follow up the guidance with something more concrete. But this is it. So let us pay attention this week to where the energy is pushing us towards. And going back to the uh, minor grand trine, so it's powerfully alchemical. We need to really singularize Pluto, the planet of singularity, as in to try hard with alchemy, with the power of our dreams, our faith, our belief, including, of course, collectively. Let us alchemize any the vibrational frequency requirements for peace. There it is. Especially those souls who are really immersed into that part of the unfolding of the energies. This is your time when the power of your belief and faith, in a non-dogmatic religious way, of course, was as powerful as it can possibly be. This is when we have influence. This is when we can demand the divine to intervene. Because usually, you know, our sphere is one governed by free will. It can intervene, but still respecting free will. But if there is a moment when we ask it to intervene, even in a more stark way, this is the moment. This is the moment. And I repeat, not just this week. This week is just the beginning. All this autumn, and speaking about the autumn, September is a month of eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces. Much later, I'm gonna be speaking about that there and then, but preparations, the energies are preparing for big revelations, closures, and again, this eclipse emphasizes Pisces because Pisces has been very active in the past couple of years. Saturn, but okay, before Saturn, Jupiter in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, but that's not a new story. But then there were the conjunctions, Jupiter Neptune conjunction, um, and then there is gonna be the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, even though the perfection is in Aries, but they will be for a few months very close together in Pisces, and that's important. So a very, very strong Pisces activation. The soul, the unconscious, esoterics, magic, faith, belief, connection to the divine. This is definitely the moment. These years are the gateway. So if there was a time for us to really stretch our spiritual muscles, this is it. Another energy, Venus in Libra, she is in her home sign of Libra. So a lot of energies are gonna go towards what happens diplomatically, not just in the obvious context out there in the world, but also in our personal lives. Contracts, decisions, negotiations, discussions, my point of view, their point of view, my terms and conditions, their terms and conditions. And because Venus is here, and this week she is going to meet the South Node and Black Moon Lilith, this is a big, big moment for negotiation. She is the ruler. Black Moon Lilith, okay, dark and this and that. The devil at the negotiation table, if you will. Yes, but she has a role, and her role is conjunct the South Node to keep our eyes, or use any metaphor you will, peeled to all of the lessons coming from partnerships, contracts, our own partnership making patterns, etc., etc., for us not to repeat the mistakes of the past. So this conjunction is important because, as I said, it makes us be in a certain kind of reality check mode that usually would not be typical to Venus and Libra, because Venus and Libra is when we wanna be peaceful, we wanna be our most tolerant, best, accepting, better self. We really wanna listen to the other party, etc., etc. This season, yes, all of that absolutely, but Black Moon, Lilith, and South Node, a lot is at stake. A lot, regardless of collectively or individually. So we can't close our eyes to what we can't close our eyes to. Equally, what we can and is a good idea to close our eyes to, that's also highlighted. Because South Node and Libra, along with Venus and Black Moon Lilith, is not just other people's faults, our own too. Our own opposing North Node, our own aggression, our own selfishness, our own ego, our own frailty, our own whatever. Everything that, when we get in our own way, usually, when the self is the self's worst enemy. So all of that is highlighted too. And it is useful. It is very, 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 very useful. So, and Mars, before I get any further, squares Neptune. Now, this Mars square Neptune, even though it's a different energy, yet I do believe it is just evoking the theme of the Jupiter-Saturn square. Why? Well, look at these energies. Jupiter and Saturn towards the mid of their signs holding the square, and then Neptune and Mars at the very, very end of the signs holding the square. It's the same theme, but with Mars squaring Neptune. What do I not do? Or how do I, for example, forgive or diffuse a situation, but without compromising my own self-image, or you know what I mean. So this Neptune and Mars square, what's true, what's not true? Or how do I use the power of words, persuasion, knowing the mind, know my knowledge, basically, any way, shape, and form, to get where I want. But that not to be a deception or lie, or you know what I mean. You want to have an influence, but you don't want to be a liar, or you don't want to be a manipulator. How do you achieve this? Exactly by going with the flow, self-knowledge, knowledge of the other, morality, what I believe, what the other believes. A fine process of figuring it out, but not just in a mental way, heart even. The ruler of Gemini, Mercury, in a trine with Chiron. In Leo, the heart. So, with a lot of heart, a lot of love. What we learned about what true love is, for example. But then there is Neptune in the sign of Pisces. What excessive, what unapplicable love is, right? Because the Christ consciousness, of course, all of us are just one. But many times, if we keep that ideal, if we don't stray from that ideal, it will defeat everything. Like, let me give you an example. And this is such a bad example, but it's the most relevant one. When a hospital is in big trouble, who do you save? Well, you save who has the more chances, right? So Neptune, you can't save everyone. Our reality is imperfect, flawed. You can't embody a principle perfectly. So this is the square. How do we make it in such a way where it's both true to our principles, but both helps the situation? Compromise. But again, I must say, these aspects require a lot of honesty with the self and self-knowledge, because chances are it will ask you, where are my boundaries? If I do this, can I live with myself? If I do not do this, can I live with myself? And let's not look at it from a collective perspective, because that's obvious. If I go back to my ex, what happens? If I break up with my boyfriend, what happens? And maybe this is the situation where there isn't right or wrong. There is just a matter of option. Both will lead to the same outcome. Imagine how difficult this is and how much alchemy and contemplation this requires. So let's move on. On the third, we have either second or third, we have new moon in the sign of Virgo at 11 degree, holding a square with white moon Selena. This again points to the same type of compromise, because the new moon in Virgo, a powerful Virgo activation, we have to look at things sometimes from the nitty gritty, every small detail kind of Virgo perspective. Because if the reality check requires that, then it requires that. But ultimately, this new moon is really, really good for detox, new habits, new routines, eliminating those which are already stale and just block your energy. Good for projects, good for work, good for your managing new ways to manage your own time, your routines, improve physical body. So there is a separate video about this new moon in Virgo, so check it out if you are guided. I'm not gonna focus on that all that much. Then on the fourth, we have Mercury holding a trine with Aries. This isn't a very new energy, because Mercury has done this for two previous times, and this is the third and final time. Rebellious energy, rebellious words, communication. I do believe this is good for people pressuring politicians to do what they want, as in what people want. So you can imagine what is, upcoming in that sense. And this, the fourth, is where, as I said earlier, Venus conjoins the South Node and Black Moon Lilith, a powerful reality check moment, powerful moment collectively, diplomatically, when discussions are burning and ongoing. And I do believe that by this moment, peace is a must. This is peace is by fang and claw forced peace. But remember that can be the case in our personal lives as well. Sorry, in our personal lives as well, a moment when we either have to make a sudden decision, or for a decision apply every ounce of wisdom and lessons that we received from the past couple of years. So, yep. Then we can look at Mars being at anaretic degree 29 degree of Gemini, which means that the square with Neptune still holds, just that Neptune by now progressed at 28 degree of Pisces, which is actually good news because it's still an anaretic energy, but it's not mathematically fixed, so it gives us a little bit of respite. But anaretic Mars, again, very heated discussions, battles, maximally, words, mind, tactics, logics, negotiations. So, but this can be a very aggressive energy as well. So in our personal lives, keep your cool, hold your temper, because this means that Mars holds a quincunx with Pluto, its higher octave. That can be very aggressive, very, very, very aggressive and uncontrollable. So again, think before you speak, and control especially your reaction, because this can get ugly, especially personally, and especially with people who we love dearly. Gemini, the other, and Mars making its way into Cancer, loved ones, right? Our dearest people, souls. So, yes, we must truly hold our tongue, especially if it is a loved one who makes us angry, because this can cause wounds. Moving on the 5th, Mars is finally in the sign of Cancer. So, as I said, this is a rather debilitated Mars, because Mars is very, very, loves being in the sign of Capricorn, very strong. So, in the sign of Cancer is so and so. It is the typical passive aggressive Mars, the grumpy, leave me alone, the toxic Mars, right? When they don't necessarily have to stir up a lot of conflict, their reaction can wound very, very deeply. A look, a gesture, a ignore mode, that can cause a lot of typical Mars expressions, but at the same time, there is a lot of good to this as well. Yeah, cowardly Mars, defensive Mars, delaying action, ignorant Mars, I don't want to be your friend Mars. Yeah, there is all of this, but for the sake of love, for the sake of family, caring for a person, doing something for a person, getting your out of your way to help a person, nurture a person, care for a person, cheer up a person, for love, romance, to prove your worthiness to that very special person, husband, wife, mom, dad, child, best friend, soulmate. You get what I mean. For all of those things, it's quite a good Mars. Loyal Mars, Mars who really goes down with the ship, Mars who wants to be in the deep waters, in the bad situation with their loved ones, who a very, very altruistic Mars. We see the Mars in Cancer usually for male light workers, those who usually work in the medical profession, give care, the very good children, male children. Actually, this is universal. This is really good for females as well. What I want to say is working with children, like kindergarten teacher, or simply the matriarch, patriarchs, those or that family in the community who children just love and take in other children, or foster children, those people who are very, very powerful in parenting, and it's an inner power that they have. So Mars and Cancer, it can be very, very good and gentle and understanding and loving. Of course, also wishy-washy, not very masculine, effeminate. I don't want to say the word, but the universe uses every energy in its recipes. Even that energy has its place and time and is very needed. But in the present moment, 2024 context, Mars in Cancer, let's defend our families. So I think I said everything. That is what's going to be like. Let's defense, the Cancer shell, right? Mars, either the wife, or Mars can be the wife, the husband, my family, my children, my community, my culture, my borders, my ethnicity. And you can imagine that because Mars will have such a long stay in Cancer, so it emphasizes Mars in Cancer, Black Lives Matter, and everything similar to that. I said Black Lives Matter because it's like the symbol of, but put that in every possible context. So yeah. Then let's move on. On the 6th is where the moon conjuncts all the Libra planets. Lilith, South Node, Venus, and Maki, if I'm not mistaken, the dwarf planet. Why is that important? We feel the need, as in not even the need, we're negotiating, chances are, right? Well, we are immersed deeply emotionally in that. And the moon and Libra, decision, 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 decision. What do I decide? Good thing that Venus is there because she gives answers. But by this time, as we are reaching the weekend, on one hand, the mystical, as in the minor grand trine, is already very, very, how should I say, operational, in the sense that our moods, our feelings, our inner worlds are like truly a factory. It's the steam is coming out. It's heavily operational. We are working in the background. So the moon being immersed in all our decision making progress is actually good, because whatever is staling, even under this energy, that is not yet time, not ripe yet. So this energy actually helps us distinguish what depends on us and what we can force time-wise and what really should be left to mature on its own. So it's really, really good in that sense. And then towards the end of the week, the 7th and 8th, well, we can see that the sun starts opposing Saturn. Reality check. Another, I know that reality check is bombarding us from all directions because what? This is a different type of reality check than Venus conjunct Black Moon Lilith. But that is a different reality check than to what we had when Mars squared Neptune. But that is a different reality check to what we have to Jupiter squaring Saturn. However, they all tie into one. So reality hitting us like a punching bag. We're reality's punching bag. But this is this is the biggest favor the universe can do to us, an erratic Neptune. That's collective craze, if you will, collective delusion. The power of faith used in the worst possible way collectively, as in collective fears manifesting something. You know what I mean? When a whole community believes that I don't know what kind of creature haunts them, well, chances are that creature will haunt them for in a real way. But the collective created that creature. It's called egregore, the process of creation. But you know what I mean? So, the power of faith. When certain creatures, like Jersey Devil and whatever you want, that was just an example, are born, they're born under aspects like this. When the community create it, and then, of course, whatever they feared, it will happen, and then the legend is born. And all of the legend makes the creature have a lot of food to exist for hundreds of years. But if you ever wondered how it comes into existence, this is exactly how. And Mars in Cancer, the community adds to this creational energy. Whatever the collective believe, well, they will get. But remember the reality checks. If the collective is reminded with every step of the way, believe in peace, believe in love, wish for the world what you would wish for yourself, the happiness, the joy, the whatever, then we're okay, if you know what I mean. Then we at least know that esoterically we're doing our jobs. And put this in personal context as well. If you're reminded that don't leave the pretty people on the, I don't know, at the beach or on the streets or whatever, focus on your career, leave the girls or the boys, leave the computer games, leave substances, leave whatever that is not keeping you from being on the right path, leave those, focus on whatever you need to do in your life. So those reality checks are actually a blessing, if you know what I mean, because they remind us not to misuse Neptune, but to actually fuel true faith, healthy mindset, healthy aspirations. So you get what I mean. This is very, very important. And the final piece of the reality check, but the best kind, is the third and final square between Mercury and Uranus, its higher octave. This is where, as I said earlier, not just we are being reminded what it is that we need to focus on in the present moment, where progress lies. But this is also the modus operandi. Whatever we figured out under the Mercury retrograde, the execution of whatever truth, information, or personal conclusions that we have reached, this is the executory phase. Yes, it might be eruptive, it might be sudden, it might be intense, but at least it's more truth based than in the previous versions of the square. It's more based on clarity and you being lucid about something than previous versions of the square. So basically, the month of August, long story short, you are much more in knowledge and in awareness, whatever the theme is for you personally, than you were in the beginning of August. So this is going to be a good square. The epiphanies, the sudden realization, and your ingenuity is getting you there. So, and long story short, this is already a pre-eclipse period. So we have to go with the flow with as best as we can. And remember, we are going to be stressed out. We're going to be anxious. We are going to be a bit schizo in the sense that happiness and fear, or joy and sorrow at the same time from different sources, or maybe even from the same source. But it's okay. It's okay. This is when the world is shifting before our eyes. This is the change of times. Our ancestors lived it through their own unique way. We live it through our own unique way. If you know what I mean. So I really hope that this helps. And remember, be patient and try not to explode in rage and anger, angry words, temper, and let's choose how we react to whatever people throw at us. So thank you, everyone. Until next time. Bye.